Hey, Miles here, milesbeckler.com. And in this video, you are going to learn all about compliance and legal documents, and honestly, the lesser fun side of building a business online, but the required side. Because the truth is right now, if you're not compliant with the different laws from Europe, from California, and the future laws that they're rolling out about your privacy policies and your terms of service, you're risking headaches and potentially risking fines. And none of us want to go down that path. Therefore, we're here today to learn about compliance. And I have two experts who I personally trust to teach us everything that we need to know, everything that you need to know about compliance. So Donata and Hans, I'm super happy to have you guys here. And why don't you just share with my audience a little bit about what's going on in the world of compliance and how they can stay on the neat and tidy side of this crazy world y'all work in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Miles. We're very excited to talk to you all today about privacy policies and terms of service, and all the things that you need on your website that can help you avoid fines and lawsuits.
Yeah, and nothing could be more exciting than talking about website policies, right? So let's just jump right into it.
Absolutely.
So we're going to share a presentation today titled 3 Digital Marketing Mistakes That Could Get You Fined or Sued. So if you're growing an email list, generating leads online, or maybe you do some affiliate marketing, this presentation is for you.
And a little bit of a disclaimer before we start, which is a great example of a disclaimer that we'll talk about later. But what we're talking about today, we're not providing you with legal advice, whether through the presentation or when answering any of your questions. We definitely recommend speaking to an attorney in your area about your specific legal needs.
And this is one of those normal challenging things, right? Like we want to give people broad understanding of what's going on and where it's going without the specifics in their specific market. So that's kind of the broad generalization that we're going to cover here.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we'll talk about the legal requirements of a privacy policy, and what the penalties are for noncompliance with privacy laws, the disclosures within a terms of service, and a disclaimer that can help prevent you from being sued. And lastly, how to obtain comprehensive website policies so that you can be safe and assured that you're protected.
Because the game is always changing.
Right. So a little bit about me. Like Miles said, I'm Donata. So I'm the president and legal engineer of Termageddon, which is a website policies generator that we'll talk about later. But I'm a licensed attorney and a certified information privacy professional. And I'm also the chair of the American Bar Association's e-privacy committee and the former chapter chair of the Chicago chapter of the International Association of Privacy Professionals. And outside of work, I enjoy gardening, hiking, and beekeeping.
Awesome. I am Hans, better known these days as Donata's husband, and I'm the vice president of Termageddon. I'm the former owner of a 12-person web design and software development company. Outside of work, I like to build stuff with wood, circuits, Arduinos, anything that helps automate our house chores. So, oh, and here's some photos of us and our pets. And all the things we take care of.
We have bees, chickens, dogs, and the cats didn't make it into the
cats
picture.
Didn't make the
not
cut.
Important enough.
Yeah, they didn't make the cut.
They're there somewhere.
I love it.
So let's talk about part one. What websites need to have a privacy policy? And there's a lot of misconceptions here. So a lot of people think that only websites that sell personal information need to have one, or only e-commerce websites need to have one. And that's really not the case. So for the first part, we're going to help you figure out whether or not your website needs to have a privacy policy. And we try to keep definitions here to minimum, but there is one that we wanted you to be aware of, and that's personally identifiable information, also called PII. And PII is really any data that could identify someone. And great examples of PII that are usually collected through websites would include names, emails, phone numbers, and IP addresses. So you'll probably, if you go through your website, you'll see these on your contact form. And IP addresses are usually collected through analytics. So if you have a service like Google Analytics, it collects IP address, which is an example of personally identifiable information.
So literally right here at this level, anyone who has like a contact me form where a name is entered, bingo, you are required by law. And then anyone who has Google Analytics, which everyone has that, or a similar tracking software to see what people are doing, because it's all IP based. Bingo, like that is where the hurdle is for, is this required or not? Contact button or analytics, which is pretty much like 99.999% of websites.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, the same thing with like newsletter sign up forms, right? So if you have a form on your website that asks people to sign up for a newsletter, that's also collecting names and emails, also examples of PII as well.
That's also a great example with an email newsletter sign up, when typically a business is not only collecting email addresses, but sharing it with a third-party email marketing provider, which can be a required disclosure with some of the privacy laws that may apply.
Exactly.
It gets sticky quick.
Yeah. So this is an example of our contact form here. So as you can see, there's where people can submit comments, questions, concerns, anything to reach out to us about our business, whether or not they want to sign up with us or have a question. As you can see here, they would input their name, email, and a message. So this contact form is an example of collection of PII, right? So collection of names and emails. And as you'll see it towards the bottom of the form, it has a little checkbox to say, I agree to the privacy policy. So this is the first really important takeaway that we wanted everyone to know, is that any website that collects PII needs to have a privacy policy due to the requirements of multiple privacy laws. So the moment you collect PII through a contact form, email newsletter, sign up form, Google Analytics, any of that, that's when multiple privacy laws can apply to you. And that's when you need to have a privacy policy. Hans, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So regulating PII is why we're here today. The fact is, having analytics, having contact forms, these are not bad things. This is standard good business practice. Like, you need to generate leads online in this day and age. So it's not bad that you have it. It's just important to understand that it's being regulated now, and that you may be required to comply with those laws if collecting the regulated information of people of certain states or countries. So privacy laws really are existing here to protect and force businesses to, or website owners just in general, to disclose the personal information that they're collecting, what they're doing with that information, and with whom they're sharing that data with. And there's obviously many more requirements that go into like little details of what each privacy law requires in terms of disclosures. But from a high level, that's what these privacy laws are trying to get website operators to provide.
And if I may, from a website user perspective, if I'm going to submit my info, it would be nice to be able to click a button and be like, what are you going to do with this? Like, y'all rent this? Y'all sell this? Like, am I going to get spammed out forever? And that's what they're facilitating or attempting to facilitate with these types of statutes.
Absolutely. And I'm the biggest advocate for people getting a right to their privacy. In fact, I don't meet many people that are like, no, I don't want a right to privacy. Like, that's an awesome
my email
thing.
and do anything you want with it, and don't tell me what you're going to do. Just go right.
Yeah.
Like, it is on one side, we can look at it from the user perspective, and it's a duh. And then we look at it from being an entrepreneur, and we're like, oh, this is a pain in my neck.
Yes, exactly. And that's therein lies the problem. We have governing bodies regulating the collection of personal information and making specific disclosure requirements that they require if you collect data from their people. And here we are stuck as business owners having to monitor all these privacy laws just to have a website online to get traffic from anywhere. And therein lies the challenge.
Yeah, and I think to Miles' point as well, many more consumers are expecting this information to be presented to them on websites. And if that information is not presented to them, they're not, they can go to a different competitor that does provide that information to them, right? So if a consumer doesn't feel safe on a website, whether it doesn't have an SSL certificate or doesn't have a privacy policy that explains what is done with PII, they'll go somewhere else that has that information. So there's a variety of different privacy laws that protect PII. So those laws are in the United States, Australia, Canada, European Union, and the United Kingdom. We won't go through all of these because it will take forever. And honestly, I just don't want to do that today. But what's really important to remember is that these laws can apply to businesses outside of the state or country in which they're passed, right? So a great example here is, let's take one of California's privacy laws, the California Online Privacy Protection Act of 2003. That one applies to any commercial website that collects the PII of California consumers. And as you know, anyone from anywhere can submit their information to a contact form. So this law really applies to any business that has a contact form on its website that California consumers could use, right? Similar thing, Nevada's privacy law, the Nevada Revised Statute, Chapter 603A, that will apply to anyone that does business in Nevada. So if you have customers in Nevada, you need to make sure that you're compliant with this law, right? So these laws have very broad application, can apply outside of the state or country in which they're passed. And each of these laws has very, very specific requirements for privacy policies. So it is essentially a list within the law that states the disclosures that need to be included.
Real quick too, and I want to note there's other privacy laws as well. A great example is just before we recorded this conversation, Quebec passed its privacy law, which will go into effect a year from now, and that will require new disclosures if applicable to your website and to your business or you yourself as an individual. So.
Yeah, same thing with Virginia and Colorado recently passed privacy laws that go into effect in 2023 as well that require new disclosures to be made. And even if you have a privacy policy that complies with all of these laws right now, it's important to note that these laws change. So for example, Nevada's privacy law was recently amended. California Consumer Privacy Act is constantly amended with new regulations being issued, and it's also being amended with the California Privacy Rights Act that goes into effect in 2023 as well. So this stuff is constantly being reshuffled and constantly changing as well.
And Donata, you as being like the head of the board, like literally this is what you do. You sit there with a group of people who are like, okay, what's going on? Where's the world going? What do we all need to deal with and adapt? And then Hans is the engineer who likes to build systems that allow entrepreneurs like me to do something once, to get it set up once, and then it automatically updates as old stuff changes and as new things come into place, which is obviously kind of like, that's where we're going with this. So a little spoiler alert for folks, but it's brilliant. Honestly, so I've used free templates at one point. I hired a lawyer on Upwork that probably wasn't a lawyer. Who knows what that person was. I've done other types of templates over time, and the biggest problem I always had with all of them is I set it up and I'm done, right? I got it done, and then 3 months later GDPR comes out, or California does their big thing or something, and I have to keep going back to updating these important documents, but I'm not doing the thing as an entrepreneur I should be doing, which is ringing the cash register, right? Like my time is no longer generating leads, generating sales, ringing the cash register. My time is like, am I compliant right now? And like, that's what we're helping people realize, that they can completely eliminate and automate at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of the sources that people use, so like free templates online, or even some attorneys that you get on Upwork or whatever, a lot of times they don't even tell you that there's an update, right? So they don't proactively come to you and say that there's a new law in Colorado that you need to be aware of.
See, that's the real challenge, is they might not know of the specifics but you being on the board, like everything flows into your little group for analysis.
I think that's why. Absolutely. I think that's why so many law firms even use our product. Is because they are, a 2-person law firm or 5-person law firm, and they don't have the dedication required to monitor, international privacy laws just for website privacy.
It's a full-time job. Like
it really is.
Sure. Yeah. But so to go back to this, so privacy laws protect and regulate the collection of PII of consumers. They don't protect businesses, and they don't care where your business is located. So you could be located in Illinois, you could be located in Texas, and you will still need to comply with California's laws or Nevada's laws, for example.
If those laws apply to you.
If those laws apply to you, yes. And then there's also heavy penalties for not complying. So if you don't have a privacy policy currently, if your privacy policy is out of date, or if it doesn't have all of the disclosures required by the privacy laws that apply to you, there could be certain penalties that apply to you. So those penalties start at $2,500 per violation. And in this case, per violation would mean per website visitor whose privacy rights you infringed upon. So let's say I have a website that has 100 website visitors from California this month, and I don't have a compliant privacy policy. That fine is 2,500 times 100. So, I mean, that would be a pretty small website, right? So you got to kind of calculate and see how these fines could really get out of control too. So the first takeaway that we have here is the only way to have a comprehensive privacy policy is to first identify what privacy laws apply to you, because each privacy law dictates what disclosures your privacy policy needs to contain. It is literally impossible to have a compliant privacy policy without knowing what laws apply to you first.
Yeah, and so not only do you have to find the laws that apply to you, yeah, this one's brutal, right? And I don't know if anyone can see the full length because I think our faces are at the bottom, so I'll just move it like that. But more privacy laws are coming. This spreadsheet here is just in the US, the proposed privacy bills, just in the US alone. And you'll see that we don't have a federal privacy law. Rather, we have individual states proposing their own privacy laws, meaning they are trying to protect the residents of their specific state. So for example, New York has 3 privacy bills out right now. I believe, 2 of the 3 will, if passed, allow consumers of New York to sue any website owner located anywhere for collecting as little as their email address or IP address from their website without proper New York privacy law disclosures. So again, going back to like my thoughts, and I think everyone's general thoughts, is privacy rights are awesome. It just sucks that business owners have to just deal with so many complicated, ever-changing privacy laws.
Yeah, and maybe if I can just say a couple words here too. So we won't go through all these bills because again, that would just take forever, but a couple things to note. All of these would apply to businesses outside of the state in which they're passed. So let's say an Illinois bill, if it passes, would apply to people in Texas potentially. All of them would require additional disclosures to be made in privacy policies, so would need privacy policy updates. The majority of these bills will apply regardless of your business size. So it doesn't matter what your revenue amount is, doesn't matter how many employees you have, doesn't matter how much PII you collect, they would still apply. Some of these bills would allow consumers to sue businesses directly for violations. If any of you have been tracking the Americans with Disabilities Act lawsuit, once it became clear that consumers could sue businesses directly, we saw like an explosion of lawsuits. So that's what we expect to see here if some of those bills are passed. And then they also provide consumer privacy rights to consumers as well. So that's something important to note too.
And so I would zoom out one little step here, and you're a bar certified lawyer, so I hope this isn't offensive in any way, shape, or form. But so if you think about the people who write public policy, right, the elected officials who are creating laws, trying to protect people, that's all they do is they write laws. Like that's their goal, that's their job. They're always trying to figure out what's the best law we can write, because they can either just throw money at a problem or they can write a new statute to try to solve a problem. That's it. And then you have this entire world of lawyers, which there are so many lawyers. Like becoming a lawyer got really hip for a while. And what do? Their job is to go find ways to enforce or find people outside of law to earn their income to represent the law. So it's literally like there's these 2 layers of social fabric that are almost designed to go after people who are out of compliance. Like unfortunately, so we create challenges, and then there's this whole group of people who legally can go after them through all kinds of suits and actions and whatnot, versus us just going ringing the cash register and protecting ourselves with a blanket auto-updating series of policies is like the greatest thing since sliced bread, because we can now trust, kind of calm ourselves that they're like, okay, we're good on this layer. We're kind of defended against most of this, which is ever changing, and we can just go forward and do what we're here to do, which is create cool stuff for our audiences.
Yeah. So, I mean,
did I go too far?
Yes and no, right?
Good.
So the thing with privacy laws is that laws aren't really passed nowadays for fun, right?
Right.
Like Congress has enough stuff to do now that they don't necessarily write laws for fun anymore.
Right.
The reason why we're seeing so many privacy bills being proposed is because consumers want them. So consumer advocacy groups have been pushing Congress, have been pushing state legislators to pass privacy laws that provide consumers with certain privacy.
So the lobby level is applying pressure to the law writers. Got it. Okay, so there was that
particular case. Yes, I can't speak to other laws just because I don't really keep track of, like environmental laws or things like that. Yeah. But when it comes to privacy, it's a push coming from consumers because they want these privacy rights. They don't want the Facebook and Googles of the world to be taking their data, selling it and using it and manipulating it in any kind of way. The problem is that while the original intent of this was to curb big tech corporations like Facebook and Google, the way the laws were written, small businesses got caught up in the net.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
It's hurting us. Right. It gives us this huge, confusing world that we now are just, we're forced to deal with it. Like, oh, you have a contact form on your website. Oh, you have analytics on your website. Therefore, you now must deal with this, and it can feel overwhelming, frustrating, scary, until you
Exactly, yes. And a lot of the people that are writing these privacy laws don't necessarily have the technology background to understand fully how things work. So you'll get these proposals where it's like, you need to get the consent of the consumer to share data. But that it makes sense on like a theoretical standpoint, it makes sense. But when you really think about it, right, if I have WordFence installed on my website for security purposes, and it has to collect IP address to make sure that I'm not like somebody trying to hack a website, and they don't consent to that sharing. I mean, can you imagine having to consent to every single plugin that a website has? It's just completely impractical. It makes no sense in practice. So you have these people writing these laws that don't necessarily have the technology background to understand what they're saying. And we don't have a federal law. There's no like in the US, there's no true movement towards a federal law. So the states are like, great, the feds don't do anything about this, so we're going to have to take this on ourselves. So we're ending up with this very extreme patchwork that small businesses have to comply with.
And they're all going to write their laws a little bit different, and there's going to be all these nuances state by state. They'll kind of sort of borrow the same ideas, but the implementation will be a little bit different. And that's where you just get this, like, literally, it's overwhelming. I mean, it just makes you go cross-eyed and be like, oh.
And then I'm like sitting over there spending 5 hours trying to resolve minor conflicts between those laws. So I totally get that.
I'm going to step aside. I think my alarm's going off. I'll let Donata continue this presentation.
Fire it up, Donata. Thank you.
So the second takeaway that we have here is you don't just need to have a privacy policy that's compliant with the privacy laws of today. You have to have a strategy to keep your privacy policy up to date when new disclosures become required. So when new bills are passed, new changes are enacted to existing privacy laws because of new technologies and new issues, you need to make sure that you have a strategy to keep that policy up to date. All right, and then for part 2, we're going to talk about how can a terms of service and disclaimer help website owners from getting sued. So we talked about privacy policies, the requirement of laws to have a privacy policy that has those specific disclosures. Let's talk about the other policies that you commonly see on a website, terms of service and disclaimers. So terms of service, often called terms and conditions, TNC, TOS, all those things mean the exact same thing, all those terms. And basically it's a document that explains the rules of using your website. So what can be done on a website and what can't be done on a website. And it also can help answer commonly asked consumer questions. So for example, if you have an e-commerce component on your website, refunds, returns, cancellations, shipping, all of that information. If you allow people to make accounts, how do you start an account? How do you terminate that account? If you allow people to make comments or upload content, what comments or content are allowed and what aren't? So you can't, for example, upload pornographic content or content that abuses children, things like that, and what the responsibilities are regarding the website. But really, when it comes to the terms of service document, the most important part of a terms of service is that it can help limit your liability when things go wrong on your website. So somebody gets hacked, somebody's information is stolen, somebody uploads things they weren't supposed to upload, copyright infringements, things like that. It can really help limit your liability and protect you in case things go wrong on the website. So a couple of the benefits. Limit your liability in case of copyright infringements. Your terms of service can have a Digital Millennium Copyright Act disclosure that essentially provides you with a safe harbor in certain cases from copyright infringement lawsuits. So let's say you allow people to upload content on a website. You allow people to upload their images or something like that. Let's say one of those images infringes on somebody else's copyright. So instead of you being sued for that, you have the DMCA notice, meaning that somebody can contact you and let you know, hey, this is an infringement on my copyright. Please take this image down. You take it down, option, issue resolved instead of spending years in court potentially.
And so for my audience, this would be like if you do a guest post and you say, hey, you can write a post and publish it to my website, and they send you 3 images in the guest post that they just went and swiped off of Google because they were lazy and they didn't go get, royalty free. I mean, Getty Images is the worst at this. Like, they just throw out $4,000 lawsuits like it's their job and their business model, because it kind of is. Bingo. If you have it pre-written, this is how we deal with this kind of stuff when these kinds of scenarios come up. It's right there. It's in the policies. It's in the terms. So it's that like ounce of prevention is worth way more than a pound of cure, is probably like the summary of the whole big idea here.
And it's yeah, absolutely. And it, don't, for everyone listening, it's not a get out of jail free card. This doesn't give you the ability to just start stealing images and do whatever you please, but it does add that safe harbor.
Exactly. Also ensuring that no inappropriate materials are uploaded onto the website. We already kind of discussed that. But it also gives you the right to publish those images on your website as well. So let's say people are allowed to upload content onto your website. The terms of service can give you that right to retain that image on that website, right? Yeah. Limit your liability if your website has links to third-party websites. That one's pretty important. So if you have links to your Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter pages on your website, somebody clicks through on that link through your site, goes to LinkedIn, gets hacked, it can help limit your liability in those cases. And reduce costs by choosing where disputes will be resolved. So for example, let's say I'm in Illinois and I have customers that purchase from me, but they're located in Nevada. There's some type of a dispute there. Let's say they didn't like the product or it came up damaged. Instead of me having to travel to another state or potentially another country to resolve a dispute, they would have to come to me, right? Yep. Saving me a lot of time and money.
And if we don't, sorry for jumping, but like, please. If we don't declare this in advance, we don't have a right, is essentially the what's going on. And so people who don't have these, they're not declaring any of this. Therefore, their asses might just have to go show up in Nevada or wherever that happens, because they didn't take time to get the document that says, if XYZ happens, here is where we are going to go to resolve this, because it's a choice unless you don't make a choice. And then it's their choice, which puts you on the defensive instead of putting us, the entrepreneurs, on the offensive.
Exactly, right. And if I have to travel from Illinois to Nevada, yeah, that's a pain. But it's possible. But let's say I have a customer from Australia. Right. Yep. I had to travel from Illinois to Australia to resolve a dispute. I mean, that would be crazy.
They wouldn't even let you in right now.
Yeah. And speaking of default terms that apply, if you're selling online, there are international conventions and terms that can apply to by default, unless you expressly say that they don't apply. Right. And those will control, like, you might have to offer refunds to anyone for any reason within any period of time. Right? You might have to honor cancellations. You might have to give people all of these benefits that actually end up injuring your business if you don't expressly disclaim those items. So it's very important to have a terms of service. It can definitely help you out. Yep. Hans, you want to take the disclaimer?
Sure. So a disclaimer is an additional document that may be valuable for some businesses. If you're in affiliate marketing, certainly be tuned into this topic. A disclaimer is a statement that limits the liabilities that a website owner may be responsible for due to the website. So if you participate in affiliate programs, you need to disclose with whom you have an affiliate relationship with. If you advertise third-party products, meaning people pay you for ad space on your website, maybe on your blog or something like that, you need to disclose that. If you sell or display health products, you can disclaim that and, say, not always speak to a physician before you ever change your diet or whatever it may be. Yep. And if you provide any information that could be seen as legal advice, health or fitness tips, you want to disclose that as well. So Termageddon's a great example. In our disclaimer, we say we're not a legal service provider. That's what allows us to charge much more cheaper prices than if we were providing legal services and charging our customers on a per legal counsel basis.
Right.
So yeah, the final takeaway for the presentation today is provide a comprehensive terms of service and disclaimer to further limit your liability as a website operator.
Right.
And then, that brings us into our final section of this presentation today, which is, where do I get website policies? So option one, hire an attorney. You want to find someone that specializes in privacy and or contracts. You can either hire 2 attorneys, one that specializes in both, or you can find your unicorn and find someone that specializes in one, or that specializes in both, excuse me.
Vice versa.
Yes, thank you. But if you can afford to hire an attorney to monitor laws and update your policies whenever the laws change, go with that route. Nothing beats having legal counsel cover this stuff and monitor everything for you. With that being said, most people don't have 10, 20 grand a year laying around.
5 figures for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
Exactly. I mean, we've had people that come to us that were quoted 45 grand for what they created in 45 minutes with our tools. So, just if you can afford an attorney, great, go with that. But the reality is most small business owners don't have those types of funds laying around for something like that. So instead, what you could consider is using a website policies generator. And full disclosure, I'm a little bit biased because I run a website policies generator, as I think it is fantastic solution to this type of problem. But policy generators are more affordable option than hiring an attorney. We can a comprehensive policies generator should help you, number one, identify the laws that actually apply to you, and only then ask you the questions necessary to provide the disclosures required under those laws.
Because real quick, if I may, the documents are like required to be as short as they can, right? We can't just go blanketly state like, oh, I'm protecting all this when most of this doesn't apply, because it actually could render the entire thing pointless, right? You can't just go get the longest, fullest thing ever and just stuff it in and be like, oh, that'll cover everything. It actually needs to be specific to our business model every time, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So it needs to be based on the privacy laws that apply to you.
Right.
And if it's not based on that, it could actually make privacy laws that don't apply to you apply to you. Because if you're saying we're compliant with Australia Privacy Act 1988, and it doesn't apply to you technically, well, now it applies. Congratulations. Now you can be fined for non-compliance.
So you literally invited in by accidentally including something that was potentially irrelevant, but now that you included it in, you made it relevant to you. Therefore, you literally just opened up a door for liability.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're saying that you offer consumers certain privacy rights that you wouldn't necessarily need to offer otherwise, that's going to take a lot of time from your business, right? So if you think about how long would it take you to delete someone's data? And if you think about that and you're like, oh man, I had no idea what I would do. If your privacy policy is saying that you would delete data where you wouldn't normally have to under that law, well, congrats, now you have to delete the data.
You just signed up for work. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And yeah, CCPA, another great example, a privacy law that has made kind of the headlines more than other privacy laws.
One, right?
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, I want to get CCPA compliant. I'm like, do you really? Because first off, it only applies to you if, number one, you do business in California. And then number two, you answer yes to one of the following three questions. You generate $25 million or more in gross revenues per year. You process the data of 50,000 or more California consumers, households, or devices, or you generate more than 50% of your revenue from selling the personal data of California residents. Right. So you had to say yes to one of those three for that law to apply to you. Granted, you could sign a contract with a vendor that makes you become CCPA compliant, but typically it's those, you have to say yes to one of those three. So when people come,
this is where identifying what applies to you and what doesn't.
Exactly.
I mean, that's like the biggest part of what you guys do. Like yes, it auto updates. Yes, it gives me all the stuff, but it also helps me stay out of the additional risk from just my pure ignorance, because all of us entrepreneurs are literally purely ignorant on this other than we need it.
Provide the disclosures you're required to make and nothing more, and you will be doing the right thing for your business.
And the right thing for consumers too, because if your policy is 20 pages long, consumers
no one's going to get through it. Yeah, right? Totally.
And privacy laws like GDPR specifically state policies should not be longer in length than they need to be. They need to be reasonable in length. So that covers that. Notifying you of changes when laws change. A good comprehensive policy generator company will monitor privacy laws, make note of that, and disclose to you when new laws change or when new laws go into effect, when existing laws have been amended. And a great privacy policy generator can even push updates automatically to your policy pages on your website with new disclosures. So now that being all said, there is a con to policy generators. They are not legal service providers. And by doing that, they're able to charge much lower fees than if they were to be providing legal services. So there's the trade-off.
Right.
Awesome. And if I were to do a plug for Termageddon, which I would be more than happy to do.
Yep, exactly why we're here.
So we are a tool that does everything we just described in the previous slide. We help you identify the laws that apply to you by asking you a series of questions, and then we ask you the remaining questions to provide the disclosures required under those laws. You can take after you generate your policies with Termageddon, you just copy and paste a piece of code into the body of your policy pages, and that's what allows us at Termageddon to control what that copy says. So when a new law goes into effect, like the 3 that we mentioned that are scheduled to go into effect over the next 18 months, we'll notify you, push the updates, and you'll have the new disclosures. So that's a really good example.
Can I give a little shortcut on what that actually means for entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
I don't have to do a goddamn thing. Literally, like, so set it up. I put your snippet of code, I think it's like an iframe or something, on my page. So it's not text, it's literally code. And then when y'all push an update through yours, everyone who has that checkbox checks or whatever we did in the setup process, it just literally, I don't even have to open your emails to know the laws change. I don't have to care that the laws change. It's all going to sort itself out for me.
Yeah, and that is absolutely what we're striving for. That being said, we can't predict exactly what regulators think of in their head the day they decide to write the privacy law. A great example is CCPA under certain circumstances will require you to provide a toll-free telephone number for people to opt out of their information being collected.
So you would email me that, and you would say, hey, by the way, like we don't
Action
have
required.
Okay. So yes. Monitor the emails from y'all. We actually did set up my 800 number. I remember that specifically. So but yeah, right.
And again, it only applies if it's applicable to you, and that's why our questionnaire is so nice. And yeah, so do I want to ignore our emails? Absolutely not. We put a lot of time into those, but I understand you're busy business
inbox.
owners.
Yeah, it's inbox management. But no. So it's like I get to we go through a setup process. I enter all the relevant data, and based on that relevant data, y'all can make as many updates as you can based on that data. Every once in a while, someone comes up with something freaking new. That's like, oh, you need this now. And we actually have to go add that because you didn't have a phone number for me before. But other than that, which I don't think that's the common update. I think the more common update would be the auto update through.
Yeah, that's right. Sure. That's what we strive for.
And what's cool about our emails too, if you do want to read them, is we include compliance guides as well. So it doesn't just talk about your privacy policy and what's happening to that. It also talks about like what rights consumers are being provided outside of that privacy policy and what those things mean. So I definitely recommend reading them if you can.
Got it. I'm on it. I'll do it.
Awesome. And last but not least, we are $99 a year. We're not a penny more. There's no hidden fees. We're simple. You get $99 a year, includes a set of policies for your website. We're currently, at the time of recording this, compatible with all businesses and people formed in the US, Canada, Australia, UK, and Ireland, with the plans to launch compatibility in a bunch of other countries over the following months and years.
Yeah, and we also don't charge you based on the privacy laws that you need to comply with. We don't charge you based by clause. We don't charge you for each update that you need to make. It's just $99 a year.
Yep.
Because some of them have the low price. Oh, you need the CPP. Oh, okay. Oh, you need GDPR, and you're literally like adding on and on.
I hate that. And then you end up with like a $400 bill at the end of it, where
they don't auto update.
And what frustrates me too is like, do you want CCPA disclosures? Well, I don't know if I want it. Do I need to comply with CCPA and provide the disclosures? Like that's what you need to uncover. So anyways, I'll digress from that. But yeah, $99 a year, no hidden fees. Yeah, pretty simple. And we'll do a disclaimer. Miles has an affiliate relationship with us because he was nice enough to listen to me rant and rave about website policies. 100%. So yeah, we have a 10% discount for anyone that sees this video and uses the promo code Miles at checkout. Visit the website termageddon.com/miles. We'll have a lot more information regarding this special offer. Miles and I got to chatting, and we have this really cool idea where if you use that promo code, you'll receive a pre-recorded walkthrough video that Miles and I did, where you'll be able to see what a typical digital marketer does when filling out the questionnaire. And that will be paired with a preloaded digital marketer's template. Again, not legal advice, but you can use that as a starting point to help expedite the policy generation for yourself.
And it's gonna do two things for people. And these bonuses are only available if you go through my link and use Miles as the promo code.
In fact, this is the first time we've ever done this before, so.
And so with the video walkthrough, your business might be unique. And what you're going to see during this video walkthrough is an explanation of each of these little segments. If you do this kind of business, if you do that kind of a business. So we're going to give you a lot clearer understanding of the bits and pieces in case your business is unique. And then we'll give you a preloaded one that's going to get you 80, 90% of the way there. It's just going to save a bunch of time so you can go build this. And we're using kind of like a customer avatar who builds an email list and does some affiliate marketing, which is what 99.999% of my audience does. So it's a pretty good catch-all, and it's a brilliant starting point for everyone. And again, the part that I want to make sure that we clear, it's going to auto update for you. So when all of this changes repeatedly in the next 3 years, because I guarantee you that is one thing I will stake, I will put a huge bet on it. This is going to get more complex as time goes on, because this is what lawmakers do. They pass laws, right, to protect their people. We're going to see all 50 states with these. There's going to be federal ones. Other countries are going to get into the game. And to not rely on a system that can automate most of this for you is foolish, because you're essentially signing up for a remarkable amount of confusion and long-term work, which is kind of why we're putting this all together here for you today. Now, that link is going to be in the description below this video if you're watching this on YouTube as well.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's our presentation. Where do we go from here, Miles?
No, I love it. So I just want to say thank you to you both, honestly. So Hans and I met at an event. I was speaking at an event, Troy, WP Elevation. So shout out to Troy, wherever he is, thank him for that. But I want to just be honest on how frustrating this world was for me up until that point. I literally tried multiple different solutions. The most expensive solution I ever went with was nearly $1,000. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Y'all are the least expensive solution that I've used, and you're the most comprehensive. So this is what I use. This is what's literally live on all of my main websites that make me money, because I am committed to protecting myself as best I can. And, you know, for the viewers who made it to the end here, it's required. If you don't have these things, and if you don't know that they're going to be updated for you in the future, you're non-compliant. And if you're non-compliant, that means you're just setting yourself up for unnecessary risk. At this point, this is a cost of doing business for us, literally. Like it's one of those required things. You got your hosting, you got your email service provider. It's required at this point in time. So I brought you guys on, and thank you so much for your time, because I wanted to show people that it doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to be something we have to keep coming back to regularly. It's something we can kind of like sit down, 30, 45 minutes, we get it done, we get it set up, and then boom, you can go back to the real work as an entrepreneur, which is grow your audience, build trust with your audience, and make offers to your audience so you can ring the cash register and grow a real business. And this is just going to support you in that.
Love it.
Yeah, Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Outsource your privacy to us, so we would be welcome to monitor stuff for you.
So click the link below, go get started. Promo code Miles at checkout. You'll get the 2 bonuses. You'll get the bonus, which is, well, you get the 10% discount. Then you get the bonus of the pre-made, pre-done for you template, and then you get the bonus video walkthrough where you'll get to see each bit and piece of it step by step. And I'm confident this is going to get you compliant, happy, and on the way. So go click the link, get it going now.
Awesome.
Thank you, Miles.